At this time, I will call the meeting to order, just to remind the commissioners and everybody else that this is a special call meeting. The only items that can be addressed during this meeting is the items that are on the agenda. We have published a notification for this meeting. Ms. Petty, we are in compliance with that with 5-day notice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I will declare a quorum is present, and at this time, I'm going to ask Commissioner Turman to give us the invocation.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day and for your blessings. Thank you for your strength and mercy. We ask you now, God, to direct our hearts and minds today as we tend to the business of the county. And I pray you touch our county and bless us. I pray, God, that you would touch our leaders and bless them, and touch our military. Be with those that are protecting our freedom today. And I pray you touch our lives and our bodies. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me in pledge allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here today. We thank you for being here. The first item of business is to approve requesting bids for construction of the jail addition. We had a meeting with the architect last week, and he is ready to proceed if we take action to request bids. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I so move.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. There being none, motion carried unanimously. Next item is to consider resolution authorizing agreements for A-Trip projects. I will call on our county engineer, Mr. Capps, to present that item.
We have two roads that's up for resurfacing on A-Trip funds. One of them's County Road 70, Horsehead Creek Road from County Road 77, Babby Road to US 331. Length of the project is 3.26 miles. And the second road is resurfacing of County Road 4 from State Road 54 to the Geneva County line, length of 3.91 miles. I don't have the full agreement, but both of these projects are just over $500,000 each.
Do I have a motion that we authorize the resolution to authorize these agreements?
I so move, Chairman.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barton, second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. There being none, motion carried unanimously. The next item is consider application options for FEMA hazardous mitigation grant. At this time, I'll call on Ms. Harris, who is our EMA director.
The options that we had.
They're in the packets.
Oh, okay.
We put them in there.
Today I just come to the commission asking your guidance on how you want me to fill out this application, which is due, like I said, the 29th. We need the recommendations from the commission on the project.
Is that all you have?
We've been over it several times. I don't know what all you want me to explain the projects or.
Well, I do have several questions I would like to ask for clarification.
Okay.
Last week, I had a conference with you and Miss Petty, and I told you that I thought there was gonna be some questions come up at this meeting. Would you like to hear them? And you said no, that you did not want the questions presented until all 5 commissioners were present. So
And
therefore,
I told you can email them to me, and I have those questions prepared.
Ms. Petty, would you,
I'm so sorry, but if you told him to email them, it wasn't in my presence.
Okay.
And he doesn't email. He could have asked me to email. He receives email. But I'm sorry, you did not say that in my presence.
to go further along with this, at the meetings on the 8th of January, there was some additional information that was presented that was not presented at the August meeting nor the December 11th meeting. And when you do not have all the pertinent information, it's very hard to make decisions, especially when you're having to look in the context of looking at all of the county's needs. We are not flush with money, and we do have to make priorities. So one of the things that came up, and I would like clarification on, what are the guidelines for a service area for community shelter?
The service area,
Yes.
in my reading, it's 0.5 miles is the recommendation for a community shelter.
The other thing, with that in mind, the geographical area that should be covered by a community shelter, is this shelter strictly going to be for county employees, or is the general public allowed to use it?
The way we set up the original application was for an alternate place for the EOC and also county employees. That's the way we set it up.
Are you telling me that if somebody shows up and wants to be in that shelter and there's room for them, that we're going to turn them down?
With the procedures, this is part of our application. With that, I have to set up actual plans on who's gonna be in charge of the shelter. This comes after we're granted the application. I have to set up a plan of who operates the shelters. Actually, I have to set in the plans when we actually close the doors. It's called lockout, and we don't let anybody in, county employees or anybody. That's the procedures that I have to sit down and make a plan on how we're gonna operate it. But that's later on in our procedures. Right now, we need to figure out what we want and how we wanna use it. Then we sit down with the major details of the shelter.
Wouldn't the number of people who are in the service area go a long way to determine the size of the shelter?
The size of the shelter, I know you researched recently also the number of county employees, and I did that also. And was speaking with Kelly, our state hazard mitigation officer, that's what I approached her about. You can figure up if everybody's here at one time, county employees, you're talking about the posse, the reserve, everybody, you're talking about 197 people. Well, I addressed that with her. I said, how do you do that? Say they're all here, and in my grant application, what I have to say is it's feasible for this amount of people to be here on one site, and that's what we're going by, is the number we think is feasible. And that has been around 100 to 150. I mean, you can say either way on that amount.
Well, generally speaking, on average, on any given day, how many people are in this area?
I don't have that. I have the number of 138 employees, 2 Red Cross, 3 at voter registration, 3 at drug court, 1 at the Veterans Office, and then your public.
Ms. Petty, I believe you made a canvass and came up with a number who are generally in this area on any given day.
You know, not counting the public that may be in the building, I counted 51. You mentioned the posse, the reserves, and all those people. Are you counting all those people, like the deputy, reserve
That's what I'm
deputies?
saying, in the big number, it could be that number, but we're saying that they're not gonna be here at all times. They do have meetings here, we do have commission meeting here. You know, you never know how many people's gonna be on site. Are you worried that the shelter's too big? I don't understand where we're going.
Well, I'm just looking at the standpoint of what is the feasibility and what is the likelihood, or what is the general norm of the number of people we would have to provide for on any given day. I know we could provide for the half-mile rate if we knew the whole the whole population within that half mile.
But that was not our scope of what we wanted to do. The scope is having a place for those in the EOC and working in the EMA office to be able to continue to work and have a safe place to go to, plus the county employees that are here and we're under a tornado warning, they have a place to go to. That was the project that we had.
Well, what is the criteria for the geographical location on an alternate EOC?
What, say that one more time.
What is the criteria for the location geographically for an alternate EOC?
There wouldn't be any, that I know of. But I know as in one of our many meetings we had together, y'all said something about putting it in a different location. But I don't understand what the problem would be with it being in the courtyard connected to the EOC. It'd be much more feasible.
So are you saying that the alternate EOC could be located anywhere in the county?
No, y'all made that comment. I'm just saying it would be.
I'm asking you a question.
I'm telling you, the safest place for the EOC would be in the courtyard connected to the EOC. That would be the most feasible place.
That's for the people in EOC, but what about the other people?
A half-mile radius is the standard.
So let me ask you this, if there's no criteria for the alternate location, is communications or electrical service, would that or would that not limit the location?
That would limit it.
It's battery, it's generated. It has a generator connected to it.
So you're saying for its electrical power, it can be located anywhere because it's self-contained with its own generation?
Yes, it'd be easier in my location because of the tower that's there, that when we do run radios, it would be much feasible for the county to have it closer to the tower.
And communications is owned by radios in the alternate EOC?
We have computers, radios, cell phones, links. We have numerous communications that we can rely on.
But then you got the possibility of cell phone towers being down. If you've got a disaster, you got a possibility of phone. So your only reliable communication would be your radios.
Those are all, that's why we have so many backups, is because we never know what's gonna be out. Most of the time during our disasters, our link were the only thing that we had to work.
Let me ask you this, if the shelter was strategically located, could it not be used for alternate purposes as long as it's maintained for its primary usage?
Yes. I think I would have to get that approved if I change it now.
There are ways to do that, but if you want.
Would you come to the mic, please?
Yeah.
There are ways to set up a dual-use community shelter with these grants. However, FEMA frowns on it. It's very difficult. And sometimes they won't pay the same amount that they would for just a single-use facility, just a community safe room.
But shouldn't that be a factor to enter into as to how much money we're going to put into the project?
Well, it would be a factor, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
If you change it the way that I'm going, you would not have more than, well, you'll have the 75%. If y'all decide to go to the bigger shelter A, y'all are putting in, I lost my glass, 54,000. In my plan, you're putting in 36,000. So,
What I'm
you
leading.
can put in as much as you want, is what I'm saying.
That's what I'm leading up to. We have some other needs that if we could combine money sources, we could provide for more needs that we have. One of those needs is we do not have a place for our county road department to meet during inclement weather. And if we could use this shelter for them to meet regularly every morning and every night, or use it for a break room, or use it for, presenting educational programs. That's what I'm leading up to. I mean, way I'm looking at what is the best use of the funds that are available.
Are we talking about a whole different program as far as y'all concerned with EMA?
It's the same program,
Right,
but dual-use facilities.
right,
FEMA eligible costs for FEMA are basically the floor, the walls, the ceiling. That's pretty much it. Everything else, if you're talking about putting in a break room, FEMA won't pay for that, any of that. No cabinets, no extra walls. They will pay for bathrooms because those are required by code. If you have chairs and tables set up, they will not count that floor space as usable safe room area. Pretty much, they're gonna they're gonna pay for a building with the walls, the ceiling, and floor.
I have a question, I have a question, Chairman. If you start putting in stuff, break stuff, tables, and such as that, you're gonna take away from the shelter. The people are gonna be able to go to the shelter, is that correct?
It will take away from the usable space that is counted by
Right.
FEMA.
I guess what I'm leading up to for is the county workers, not necessarily, Mr. Capps is here. There's a possibility he might could add some money from his funds into that in order to be able to.
Also, if his money is federal dollars, there are issues, we cannot match federal funds with federal funds.
I'm talking about state dollars
Okay.
on that. And I'll ask Mr. Capps, for the purposes of the men gathering out of the inclement weather, do they necessarily have to have chairs and tables? Or if you had a safety meeting, you would set it up and then tear it down?
Yeah, you could, fold the tables up and fold chairs up.
Now, we have done this before. There are some schools that have their cafeteria set up as safe rooms. And they have tables and chairs that fold up and out of the way. Now, we can't, and there are a couple of gyms.
Right.
The space where the tables are folded up and set out of the way, or where the bleachers are folded up against the wall, that does not count. We can't count that space.
So what I'm talking about has been done on the other grants?
It has been done, yes. I did not say it could not be done, I just said FEMA doesn't like it, and therefore they're very particular about how we present things to them.
Okay, I mean, that's what I want to ascertain, that it could be some alternate uses for it with some limitations.
Yes,
And therefore, we could get bigger bang for our money by doing that and provide some services, other services we want, by combining funds from different sources in order to get a building. If you build one building with these funds and one building with these funds, it's gonna cost you more than building one large building with those funds. It's just a thing of the larger the building, you do not have to have certain exterior walls on one building that you would have to have on two buildings, and therefore you could reduce your costs. That's my point.
it is possible to do, but we will have to discuss it offline and go over what you really are looking to do, where your funding's gonna come from, that sort of thing.
The match would change.
Right,
In other words, our match would go up
correct,
when you use it for a dual purpose.
correct,
Do you know any percentages
no.
that it would
No,
change?
I would have to look and see what actually is eligible under the hazard mitigation grant program and what is not, and your match would depend on how much ineligible things that you wanted to put in.
and that would probably delay the time that we would have to get this in, because we're limited.
These types of applications are more involved than just a straight
Can,
community safe.
can we amend the application once it's been submitted?
You can within certain limits.
Now, I know we probably asked you a lot of questions that kind of sounds crazy, but just say we approve one of these plans to go ahead and do the application, and then we decided that we might wanna try to make it a dual purpose, would that, is it two different type applications have to be submitted, or could you tell us that? You know what I'm saying, if we do it on this one application, can we amend it, or do we have to do a whole new application?
You can request an amendment. We can certainly turn that into FEMA, but that is their determination, whether that gets approved or not.
Sound like we'd be muddying the water.
Yeah.
I understand.
Sometimes FEMA's kind of hard to work with.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess, from my standpoint, I'm looking at funds that's available and how to spend them and how the best use to
I
use.
understand. There are many things that FEMA does with this program that do not really make sense in the real world. It does seem to make more sense to use this money to build a community safe room / community center. Unfortunately, that's not the way the program is written, and we have to abide by those federal code of regulations.
Thank you,
Well,
ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr.
No,
Mr.
I'm
Barton.
wrong. I was just agreeing with you.
I was reviewing the budget, and we did not budget any money for this particular grant. So therefore, we've got to find funds
Right.
if we're going to match it. And one of the things that's impacting funds, and we did not know this till last week, we got notification from FBI that we had to upgrade computers in the sheriff's cars and investigators, and that's a must-do. We don't have no choice, because if we do not upgrade, we will not be able to access the information in order to check on people that we're potentially going to arrest or anything else. So that, and I looked at the contingency fund. We do not have enough in the contingency fund to fund both that and this grant.
Right.
So, I'm just informing the commissioners, we may have to make a choice because of funds not being available. I like grants, but at some point in time, the matching part gets to be more than you can handle.
Right.
And it sounds good. We got a grant for $125,000, but most time it forgets about that matching part, and that's the hard part for us funding. And by doing that, we only have a limited amount of funds that's available, and we will have to make a choice as to where we're going to spend them, and sometimes that choice is already made for us. We don't get to make that choice.
Right.
And that's just, that's where I'm coming from.
We can talk about, there are other ways than just cash. There are in-kind matches that you can make, and we can get creative there. We can look and see what other things you have to offer that are not cash. In-kind work with county employees, land value, things like that.
What is the time frame? I think Ms. Harris told us that if we go ahead and submit the application, it may be several months before it's approved. Is that correct?
It will be. It could be a year before it gets approved. I don't think it's gonna be that long because this is a rather small disaster. We don't
Well,
have that much money.
If we go ahead and select a plan and submit an application, then we're not bound to that until it's approved or disapproved, and if so, then we could certainly reject it even once it was
You
approved.
can withdraw the project, yes. There is no
So
penalty for withdrawal.
I would say
Other than
that,
us just being really disappointed.
Yeah.
right, I mean, we may or may not get it anyway, so my recommendation would be to select a plan and apply for it, and then make the decision if and when it's approved,
Mr.
as to
Elmore,
what difference we could do.
That's about the same question I had, Mr. Barton, the same thing, is go ahead and make the application for it. If we get approved, then we might look at some avenues you're talking about right there, because helping with the money, finances, and, I think that's what we need to do, go ahead and
Yeah. I mean,
apply for the application.
I understand
Then-
that.
Then discuss some of these other issues that's been brought up, the chairman has brought up today, has not been brought up before.
And I understand that the counties are strapped for cash, just like everybody else. But of course, this is my pet program, so I think it's really important. So we'll do, we're gonna help you any way we can to try to come up with that match.
that sounds good.
Yeah,
I-
wish I could.
I have one other question, or two other questions. If the plan comes back and it's approved and we submit it to bids, and that bid comes in to a point where we don't think we can sustain that, or provide the matching, provide the matching funds for that bid, we can turn those bids down, can we not?
Yes.
Do we have the option of scaling back the plan?
Yes.
I-
It would be, we would have to request a scope of work change from FEMA and the justification that it was too expensive, that you don't have the match money to match the bids that came in. We've done it several times with the DR 1971, the tornado disaster. We've had to do it a couple of times. But I will tell you, before 1971, the safe rooms were, say, if you just got a prefab that held 100 people, they were running $150,000 a piece. And now they're coming in less than $100,000.
Well, it's refreshing to know that there are some other options and some other things, you know, and if information had been available earlier, we probably would not be here today. And
This is a very complicated program, and things have changed in the past. Well, FEMA changes stuff every 5 minutes, but the things that we can do, we've pushed FEMA a lot this past year or two, and we've gotten a lot more options. It's very hard to know everything that's going on unless you work with this program on a day-by-day basis.
well, I noticed in the plan that all three plans that Ms. Harris presented has a warning system. And my question, we do already have a warning system, do we not?
No, sir, the county does not have a,
Well, what is a sirens for?
we have outside warning sirens, that's for people that are outside, they're not considered warnings for people that are inside the building. And our plan was a way of notifying the county employees that were at their desk working, and that's a plan for that.
So that's an additional projected additional 18,000.
Correct.
Do
That's
we
part
have
of
to
the
use
plan.
that, do we have to use that warning system?
No, sir.
I would
You can come
like-
up with any other type of warning system that you want.
I would like our safety officer to address the warning system that we are talking about for different things that's been discussed in safety meeting.
Morning. Yes, we have discussed warning systems for fire drills, tornado drills, that our insurance company had recommended that we start doing those every so often each year. And I believe, and Kevin's not in here, Kevin's been working with some guys locally and has got an estimate, and from what I understand, has went ahead and give them approval to go ahead and install it in the courthouse. Some warning sirens. I believe that the judges were gonna use it for something, but it would also, be usable for tornadoes and fire drills, and it would just be pushed by a button. I think the guards that sit out front would activate the sirens. And the guy that, I'm sorry, I don't know the guy's name that was supposed to be doing it, but he was gonna come by here, this building, and, see that since he was gonna be doing the courthouse, if we could get a little break in the cost, if, we would let him do this one too, but it will require somebody actually pushing the button. So it would need to be somebody that was in this building all the time,
That'd be no problem there, would it? At receptions down here,
Well,
The jail would be the most likely place.
jail.
I would say the jail. I mean, there's someone in the jail
Be there
24 hours a
24
day.
hours.
And we discussed that, and we'd also discussed if there was, any way with the new phone system we got, the phones could alert, or if you had any type of intercom, and that would get everybody also, And I don't think we've gotten anywhere with that so far.
So at this point in time, you have no projected cost on that warning system.
He has not come by and looked at this building as of yet, and I spoke with Kevin, about that last week, and he was still trying to get him, he's already been approved, from what I understand, to do the work at the courthouse, and he has not come and done or started that yet. So he's trying to get him on to do the courthouse and to come over here and, take a look at what it's gonna cost to put the alarm system in here. From what I understand, it's just gonna be a basic, maybe 1 bell or 2 bells for fire and, a different tone for tornadoes. And there's Kevin come in right now. He's probably got a little more information on the.
Mr. Kennedy, we were talking about the warning, system.
Yes, sir. We do have, it's from Pioneer Technologies, we do have an estimate of a little over $2,000 for a system for the courthouse. As I'm working on this, there's so many parameters involved. The courthouse being a multi-floor building, it's essential that we have a warning system in place over there. Very hard, without it being some kind of automated with smoke detectors and things like that, hard to figure out exactly how it's gonna work. But since we have security at the front desk all the time, there's gonna have to be some training involved with employees. The judges mentioned the fact that from time to time, we've had a bomb threat at the courthouse. That would be an evacuation situation. You would also have, if you had a fire, it would be an evacuation situation. And if you had inclement weather, or serious weather, it would be a different situation where you would not leave the building, but you would stay in the building and go to the safest places in the structure. We did a lot of work, a lot of groundwork on that, and we have a plan for the courthouse figured out. And I'm kind of waiting on Pioneer, who is backlogged and shorthanded, as everybody is, to implement that. When we're discussing this building, being as it's a single floor with multiple exits, I spoke with Susan briefly. We haven't talked a lot about it, but about the warning system. Do we need to spend money for a warning system with the sirens that are in place? You can hear the sirens in houses and in buildings. People sit at their desk in this building and hear them every Wednesday when they go off, training or whatever, or testing rather. We hear them, most of us do. And I asked her about maybe having a siren outside this building on the tower that would warn everybody in this area just a little closer than the ones we have already that we can hear now. With that, in the tornado side of it, since we have a single floor, I've talked to the fire chief, about what he thought we needed. I talked to our insurance guy, and he told me he had no problem with just smoke detectors in the building for a fire evacuation type thing. So with all this said, I'm always trying to save the county money. I don't want to waste a dollar. So do we need a system in this building? Another issue was somebody being in this building at all times, like the security is at the courthouse, and Ms. Petty mentioned the jail. There is someone, it's my understanding there's someone in Ms. Rachel's office all the time, that they have to be there for the sheriff's department, and that would be the contact here, which again would take employee training. If there was a fire, or I guess the EMA department could initialize by calling Rachel's office and saying, you need to press the button for tornado safety or whatever, and she would do that. It would still take an employee, to do it. But there would be a system here where she could then push a button to have everyone notified. We could have sirens, horns, whatever. We could have them in the engineer's office in this building and at the jail. The jail, I wouldn't leave the jail to come to a safe building. Personally, I may choose the jail over the safe building. I work on it. I've drilled holes through the concrete this thick. I don't know that what we're going to install is going to be as
Let me
secure as the jail
interrupt you
is.
here. Based on your research with the courthouse and applying that to this building out here, to this area out here, and you're talking about in terms of $2,000 over there, and the proposal is a $18,000 thing, and that's where I have a question. If we can provide something that's adequately at less cost, I think that's probably what we need to consider.
I think we could. I think for less than $2,000, I know a lot of that's equipment cost, and I've agreed to work with Pioneer, and me and my guys pull all the cables, which that's a lot of labor and a lot of cost in it. This building would be easier. It's definitely smaller. It'd be less sirens. So there's no way it could be as much as the courthouse. Yeah, I would say it would be considerably less than $2,000 to put it's a simple alarm system. It's as simple as a bell in a schoolhouse where they ring the bell for people to go to a tornado or fire. I mean, it's gonna take a manual push button. I don't have any idea. I hadn't seen the paperwork on the $18,000 one. I bet it's a lot higher tech. I bet it's gonna be hooked to a computer that's gonna do a lot of this work for us. But, with that said, that's where we're at on that, and with the insurance guy's recommendations that, smoke detectors in this building is an adequate way to get the employees in this building out because of the small statute and as many exits as we have. There's so many exits in this building. If a fire breaks out on this side, no one has to go that way. There's an exit everywhere. The courthouse, if a fire breaks out downstairs, you might not know about it upstairs before it's too late.
I think what we are addressing here is more in line with the tornado or inclement weather.
And we can definitely install something, here to do that.
Right. We can go ahead and apply for the grant and make that change as needed.
I'd like to
Yeah.
address the reason I chose this, program. Well, first of all, Kevin did call me about, the siren. And so researching the siren, it's gonna be closer to $30,000 for a siren. And as I told you, the sirens for outside warning sirens, the liability of us saying, okay, you're supposed to hear it when you're running your computer or fax machine or whatever, and hearing a siren, there's a liability for us. That's why I searched and found this program, which works with our system that we have now. Did they have those in the
Yes.
packages too? It was with
We haven't,
the weather horn. If you don't have it, I'll have some extra copies. The weather horn, this is what we're talking about.
I have one at home.
Do you have one?
I've seen it.
You have one?
We had one last week, didn't
Right. I think there may be on the back of this.
I have a question. Does this warning system have to be part of the grant package?
You have to have some type of saying how you're gonna let,
Okay.
it doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be approved through the application though. But it can be anything. You can come up with any system. Like he was talking about, you can come up with that. Any system. But with this system, it's actually with McCord, the people that did put in our 21 sirens that we do have. They work with those sirens to do so much more than just warn the county employees. With this system, it automatically does the notifications, has 2 different backups on that. It will send an email to all county employees, put it on their phone, their text machine, and also will go through our phone system that we have here, giving them some type of alert. There's several options. You could do all 3 of them to all county employees if you want to. So it's actually a wonderful system for notification of tornado warnings. But also, it's just an asset to the EMA program of the other things that it does, which is it will automatically set off the other 21 sirens. Automatically, it will go through my cell phone and ask me if I want to set off the sirens as soon as it gets the tornado warning. There's just so many different things. It would automatically put, I can have it go to our EMA Facebook page and put out that has the warnings and watches or whatever, however I want to set it up. Twitter, I don't know much about Twitter, all the things, but it will be able to get more information out automatically in several different ways. So that's why I liked, as an EMA director, I really liked this program. But if you'll look on option C that I have down there, because of the cost of the shelter that I do propose, to actually get the figures up to actually the 75-25, it's kind of like we're getting it at a really part of the program. It's feeding that price to go up so we actually can use all the 125. See, I have that weather warning system in Plan C, but we're still at the match of 36. 257. So it helped get the the fee up. So we're using all that 125.
But the greater the greater amount of the match we use, the greater the number that we have to provide. If you didn't use but 80,000 of the grant, we wouldn't have to come up with the 40 or 60,000.
Yeah, you don't have to use all the 125, correct?
Now, I just want to make that clear that I can see your point of trying to use all of the grant, but it goes back to what funding we have is how much of that grant we can afford to use.
That's correct.
Well, I would recommend that we go ahead and choose a plan and get the application working because of the time restraints that we're dealing with. And if we need to amend it or whatever after the fact, then that's just what we'll need to do. But sounds like with the deadline we need to meet, we need to go ahead and make a decision as to which option we need to pursue.
Susan, do you need me to give you an estimate or something, or Pioneer, like something written when you get this application, so that we prove that we
Kevin.
have an idea for?
Come to the mic, please, so we can.
If I need to get an estimate from Pioneer to hand her for this application of a price, so that she can show on the application we've made, just as an alternate, what she's got sounds great. Well, listening to her, I'm thinking, well, we almost don't even need a separate plan at the courthouse. If we can hook everybody's phone up there up to this system right here, why would we need to spend money on putting a system at the courthouse? There is, again, the public issue of people being in the building. So, but that's something we can talk about later. But I can get some paperwork for an estimate that it would cost us to put it would be an inclusive for this building. We could add the engineer's office to it, and the jail if we needed to, but we could get an inclusive estimate for this building as just a manual way to alert employees as an alternate to the one she's got, if she needs that for the plan.
Personally, I would like, if y'all don't like that idea, I would like for to go ahead and change it and put it in the plan now. And, cause if
Well-
we are going with his, I wanna go ahead and put it in the application so there's not so much changes. I understand if the money's not there and we need to change it, but if that's not where the commission wants to go in, yeah, I would like to get the application as close as what y'all want. So I don't have to make so many changes, cause it's such a headache to have to
Right.
go through all these changes.
Could we make some changes once we got the application in? If we wanna go this warning system, could we go ahead and update that time, at that time?
Yeah, we can, but we have to go through, would that have to be gone through FEMA also?
Before it's approved, before we send it to FEMA, no.
No, but like it's approved from FEMA and we change our minds on the warning system, it has to go through FEMA again to get changed.
Let me, while I'm talking about these really high-tech systems and all, if you're wanting to save money, your best bet, since the safe room is for inclement weather for the purposes of the grant program, and this is a very cheap solution, weather radios. Just put a few around, one in every other office. You set them up, they set them up, they set them off. And that's only for weather. That doesn't, address the active shooter or any of that kind of stuff. But, you pick up a few weather radios for $40 a piece and have a program.
Yeah, well, I think we're getting them.
And this has come in my discussion previous with other buildings and stuff, and you talk about people that are in restrooms and people that are in file rooms, and everybody can't hear it, so then you open up a whole different can of worms. However, if that is sufficient for the grant, I would be all for it. But is it sufficient for the grant? We're talking about a grant here, and the way I've been working is talking with our insurance company. The insurance company is the one worried about, so we're talking about so many different things. The insurance guy is not gonna like the weather radio thing. He says everybody can't hear it, there's gonna be somebody in the bathroom, there's gonna be, so there's so many different ways to think about it. It is great. I mean, that would be a great idea. And we could put
And
enough in this building.
FEMA's happy with that. We've
Right.
done it before. FEMA's
For this
fine.
grant, that
For
may
the
be,
grant.
for this grant, that may be the way to do it. And then we can look at financing the other options, later in a different way.
But
That's what I'm
if
saying.
FEMA's gonna pay for 75% of
Right.
the system anyway.
Right, we need to,
That's what
And
I'm
you
saying.
need the system for insurance purposes.
that's right, we need to go ahead and do it now.
Then this is a good opportunity. But there is the match issue.
I think that's the reason we're having this discussion, is looking at different options, and also, whatever we select will have to be bidded. And
Right.
it's not necessarily that this warning system will be the successful bid. Is that not correct?
Depends on how you word the bid.
No, you're not telling me we need to just
There's
write the
only-
specs for one particular manufacturer,
No,
or?
you can't do that. if
Huh?
you specify
Huh?
steel row, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
49-person Quonset hut, there's only so many manufacturers that meet those specifications.
Hmm. Well, I think we ought to ask for the most and get what we can get, and then, you know, we can amend the plan as we get it, but we only got a little over a week and a half or so to get this submitted. So I think if we go to changing a lot now, it may get us into more of a time crunch. But you gave us some good information.
I got a question. This system that y'all are talking about getting now, or applying the grant for, would be hooked up to the 21 sirens that are throughout the county, and I assume would go off whenever the sirens went off in the buildings. So if we have bad weather or severe weather in the Florella area, we're still gonna get sirens up here for everybody to move into the shelter. I just didn't know if that would be.
That would be something, we come up, that's one of those things at the end of the way that we set up our procedures on how the commission wants to operate with the tornado warnings. But as far as the county and the way that we set it up with our committee that we had, we chose if any part of the county is under tornado warning, all 21 sirens go off. Now, it's gonna be up to the commission, when y'all decide if it has to be in this area before they go, and we can set that up because it does polygons. And we actually can set it up that they only get it if it's in the polygon of this building, if that's how y'all wanna set it up. Or I can set it up if there's a tornado warning in the county. It's however, when we get to those steps, you know, and define the actual plan of the community shelter, that would be the details that we work in there then. That's good though.
That's all the comments I have.
You need a motion on the floor, is there a motion on the floor?
No, there's not.
Do we need to accept a plan?
And a location, please, as you include that, please.
Well,
Let me,
Yes,
about the
ma'am.
location, choose carefully. That's the one thing that FEMA will not change,
the location.
pick a location, yeah.
Mhm.
They'll change it within a very small distance, like
Talking feet?
1,000 yards.
Oh,
Maybe a
Okay,
little
well-
further, but once you pick a place, that half-mile radius, those people, it needs to stay within that area to cover those people.
So there would not be a problem
moving.
if you selected the, Mr. Caps's area, if we selected it, which is just across the street, there would not be a problem with switching it from the adjacent to the EOC to that.
Across the street.
Yeah, right.
Where the
Yeah, just-
engineers,
The next building.
Yeah.
yeah,
It wouldn't
that's,
be, what,
that's not a
100
problem.
yards?
We would have to request permission from FEMA, but
Mhm.
that would not be a problem.
Okay.
But now, if you choose to put it, say, 3 miles down the road, that's gonna be an issue. So
Right.
just be careful where you choose.
Well, I think the definition of the area sort of limits as to where you make that location with you within that half mile. Then
Right.
you'd probably,
To cover, the purpose of the grant would be to protect a certain population,
Right.
certain people, basically. And you need to keep that shelter close enough to cover those people that you choose.
Thank you. Well, I've looked over the plan and the cost and what Ms. Harris says and the information we got today. And I would make a recommendation that we do Plan C and build it in the area next to the EOC between the two wings here to build one facility, would be my recommendation. Because our match is less and it would be large enough for all the people to get into, and it would be less disruptive as far as any work's going on. If we build one here, a little one here, and a small one over there around the engineer's office, just the area they're working in would be disruptive, and there's nothing going on out here in the middle of this one, and it would be be closer for the employees here, and the people from the road department are probably not all gonna be in there. Won't be as many people over in Mr. Cap's area as they would be over here, because they would know the weather's getting bad and wouldn't even be in this area.
Okay.
Can the county engineer be the peer design review, since he's a registered engineer?
Yes, I believe so. I can check for sure.
Okay.
I believe the only stipulation is that it has to be someone different from the person who actually does the plans and builds the shelter. You have to
But
have just
Mr. Cap has had nothing to do with drawing up the plan, is that correct, Mr. Caps?
Looks like you said all that would go to some in-kind service and stuff that would help offset our match, correct?
You can use in-kind,
And-
county employees
and-
doing site prep, using county equipment,
Right.
all that can be counted towards your.
Okay.
Okay.
Who receives the management cost fee?
Well, y'all do. If you put it in your budget, it's a 6%, well, it can be up to 6% of the project total. Put it as a line item, project management fees, and that comes to you. You just have to send me documentation of who's doing the work to manage the project.
So that could come into the general fund of the commission.
Yes, well, it would be reimbursed. Of course, this program is all a reimbursement program, so as you expend the funds and you send me documentation, proof of payment, that sort of thing, and then I reimburse 75%.
Okay.
So with those two things, we are effectively reducing our costs.
Okay.
Net cost, when I'm talking about net, you got going out, but then it comes back.
Right.
All right. All right, well, I second the motion.
Well, I didn't make it into a motion, but I will.
I thought you did. I
Well,
thought
I
you
would
said
make
that's
it.
what you was wanting.
Okay, I just made my suggestion, but I would make a motion that we accept Plan C and build in the area between the two wings of the administration building.
Now, do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Northern, second. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. There being none, motion carried unanimously. That is the last item of business on the agenda. Now,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
all in favor, stand.
I'll put them in the coat.
Well,
Yeah, put them in my coat. Super good, you know what?
Where'd Kevin go?